Fractals, a trader's worst best friend. So I'm making this video hot off of the other video I made recently that had to do with technical analysis being fundamental analysis. So now I want to backtrack a little bit. Not all technical analysis is made equal, and maybe that's a good topic for another day. But today I wanted to focus specifically on fractals and why I think fractals are not particularly valuable to the trader on the markets today. So I have seen fractals all over the place with respect to crypto, and I think it's personally, I believe it's one of the most overrated, overused, overvalued kind of technical analysis tools on the market. And it's for a very few specific reasons that I'll delve into. But for those who don't know what a fractal, very simply put, is a repeating pattern. So let's say I have an asset, it's at $1, then it went to 5, and then I went back to 2, and then I went to 6. I can say that that is a fractal. I can copy that, and I can say in the future, well, it went from 1 to 5 to 2 to 6. So if I double those numbers, so now we're at 6 now, then it can go from 6 to 10 to 4, so on and so forth. And I can just copy that pattern and apply it to the future. And I can say, like, this is the fractal that happened before. So the same action is going to happen in the future. We're going to have the same peaks, the same troughs, the same valleys, and that is the makings of a fractal. And I personally do not believe in fractals. I think fractals are, again, completely worthless, a waste of time, and they actively are there just to screw you over mainly. So the first thing I would like to say, and you've heard this many times before in other debates and other arguments and things like that, correlation is not causation. And sometimes it's usually not causation for the most part. So what I've seen people do with respect to Bitcoin is they will look at something like the gold chart and they will say, well, gold operates and this very similarly to Bitcoin, or Bitcoin operates similarly to gold. They trade similarly. They have the same peaks, the same troughs, the same valleys, such that if gold starts going up, Bitcoin is going to start going up almost as a side effect, or if Bitcoin starts going up, gold is going to start going up, depending. I think generally gold is a leader there because it's a much bigger market. I don't think people are really looking at Bitcoin to see if Bitcoin is going to move, and so because Bitcoin's moving, I'm going to go buy some gold. It doesn't really make too much sense. But certainly the inverse has been posited as true by many traders and people on the markets. And again, that's for me, that's really one of those examples of correlation is not causation. People will look at the gold chart and only at the chart, and they won't look at any fundamental reasons on why gold is moving, why is gold increasing or decreasing in price, and they will just say, well, because the gold price is moving in this direction. We can clearly see, right, that Bitcoin is also going to follow the same trajectory. And sometimes it does. Sometimes that is actually kind of true. But it's not true because of the gold chart necessarily. I think the reason gold, for example, I can give a much better reason why gold and Bitcoin move together. It's because they're good stores of value, simply put. And so the market forces, if you are a very rich individual, you have $10 million, $100 million, whatever, you want to store your money, you're going to store it in gold, you're going to store it in silver, precious metals, you're going to store it in things that are stores of value. So you may even put some of that into Bitcoin. Bitcoin obviously is a much smaller market, so it takes a lot less money to move. So clearly, even if you put something like 10% of your wealth into gold and only 1% of your wealth into Bitcoin, Bitcoin's going to receive the same, it's going to appreciate almost the same amount. I don't know what the gold market cap is, but actually, that's a good question. Let's see what the gold market cap is. Let's check what the gold market cap is. So the market cap of gold, okay, I was thinking it was around 6 trillion. So it's around $7 trillion for gold. Bitcoin is right now something along the lines of, I think it was $250 billion. Okay, $200 billion. So it's much smaller, I think, by magnitude of about 50. So, or 20. So, 30 rather. I can't do math. So it's much smaller. So that means you need, for every dollar you put into gold, you need about 30 times less that to put into Bitcoin in order to have the same effect, presumably, in theory. So you don't need that much money. So if you're a rich man and you're putting money into gold, you're going to put some money into Bitcoin, you're going to put some money into silver, so on and so forth. And so that is the reason why gold and Bitcoin and silver and these other precious metals and stores of value almost seemingly move up in tandem with each other. It's not because of the chart. The chart is almost an afterthought. Again, the correlation is not the causation. The correlation between the charts, it's not because gold is going up that Bitcoin's going up. It's because rich people are buying stores of value, and Bitcoin happens to be a store of value along with gold, and that's why they move up almost similarly. So I think in that respect, fractals are really not very useful. Certainly if gold starts moving up, you can make a bet on Bitcoin, but it's not because of the chart. It has nothing to do with the chart and has more to do with the fundamentals of people looking for that store of value. And then secondly, there's another thing that could be said about apophenia. So if you don't know what apophenia is, this is a mental disorder that people sometimes get. And I think many traders on the markets have this apophenia, because what apophenia is basically, you are looking... The human mind, the human brain is very good at finding patterns. It's very good at finding, if X is true, then Y and Z must be true, so on and so forth. And the brain is almost a pattern recognition machine, and it's gotten very, very good at that over the past, however long, 5 million years or so since humans have been alive. Modern day humans. So what happens is when this goes a little bit too far, and you can get this disorder called apophenia. So if you've ever seen the movie 23, I don't remember who the main character was, but he basically sees the number 23 in everything. He starts counting the letters of his name. He starts looking at the letters of his last name. He looks at the day he was born. He counts, I was born in August 17th, and I somehow can get this to add up to 23 through some like messed up methods. And so he starts seeing it everywhere. He looks at his license plate and sees 23. And so this is a case of apophenia. I don't remember how that movie ended, but it was pretty spooky. I think I saw it when I was like 6 or something. Anyway, so this is apophenia, right? Looking and finding and seeing patterns where there really is nothing. It's almost like looking at a cloud and you see a face, right? There clearly is no face in the cloud, but that's kind of what you see because it's a construction of your mind, and your mind is looking for things that it knows and things that it can liken to things that it recognizes, and so that's what it sees. So there's certainly something to be said about apophenia. And I think a lot of people have this, or when they use fractals, they tend to tread this line of apophenia, because one of the things that I see a lot, oftentimes, is people will take a fractal, so a bar pattern of Bitcoin's price performance in 2015 and 2016, and they will apply it to Bitcoin today. And they will say, because we had this price action before, we're going to have this price action again, for no other reason than the price action had happened before, so it should happen again. That's it. What they fail to take into account is the completely different market forces that we have these days. The same market players aren't the same players that were in back then and back in the day, where it was just like the Winklevi twins buying a bunch of Bitcoin and that was it. Clearly, Bitcoin is much bigger now. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of more people involved in this crypto ecosystem. And so to say that, let's say 2019 or 2020, we're going to have a run and the chart is going to look exactly like it did in 2015, so we just need to apply a little fractal here and apply it to this, you're taking the result of market forces that existed at the time, and you're applying the result here, but you're not looking at the market forces being completely different. And so we even see the bull run in 2017 looked nothing like the previous bull run that we had in Bitcoin before that. Looks nothing at all like it. And so I'm sure in 2017 we had people looking at 2015 run information and data and fractals and trying to apply it to 17, and of course they were wrong because the market was completely different. So again, it's a bad case of apophenia. You have no idea. So if you spend any time on Twitter, this is the third thing. You have no idea how many times I was on Twitter during all of 2018 and I saw fractal after fractal after fractal after fractal saying that this was the bottom. This is the absolute bottom because we're fitting this fractal. We hit the bottom at $16,000, and then it was $12,000 was the absolute bottom, and then $10,000 was as low as we would go because we matched this new fractal, and then it was like $8,000 because we were approaching RSI levels that hadn't been seen since 2015, and then we approached $6,000, and this was definitely the bottom because this is exactly how it behaved back in 2017, and then again it was a bunch of fractals that people were using that ended up being completely wrong. They were all wrong. Every last one of them. I don't know of a single fractal that people use today that actually managed to time this bottom, and if they did, they were probably lucky. So, people have this bias where they forget when people lose, but they remember the wins. And so, you even see this on Twitter, right? If I make 10 calls today, I can delete 9 of them when they're wrong, and I can just have my one call, and I can retweet that, and I can say, you see, I was right, I'm a great trader, join my paid group. And a lot of people do this, and this is a fallacy. This is fallacious. And so there were a lot of fractals that we ended up having in 2018 that were all completely disproven, all completely wrong. Finally, the final point. Technically, you can always retrofit a fractal. You can always look after the fact and say, well, we had this fractal, and then here's the price action that we had. And wouldn't you know, this fractal manages to fit this recent price action that we had. And so if you had only the intelligence to follow this fractal, you would have made 1,000,000 times your money, because you could have 100x at the bottom here. And how obvious was this fractal that you should have followed it? And it is simply untrue. All it is you're retrofitting. You're going back in time and you're looking, well, which fractals, I'm going to ignore the fractals that didn't apply to it, and I'm only going to look for the fractals that actually made sense, and that actually matched the price action, and I'm going to copy and paste that onto this, and I have like this nice line that matches the current price action, and I'm going to say, look, it was an exactly correct fractal. I was right. I'm the greatest trader in the world, and if only you had followed this fractal, you would have been correct. And then what these traders will often do is, because they think that the fractal was actually true, they will actually trick themselves into believing that this was the case, that they're not retrofitting. They will actually go and use another fractal, and they say, well, my first prediction was correct prediction. So now I'm going to make an actual prediction instead of retrofitting, and I'm going to say that here's where Bitcoin's going to go, or whatever alt, in this case Bitcoin, and they're oftentimes wrong. They're wrong. And when they're wrong, again, it's that survivor bias of you don't really remember the losers, you don't really talk about them, they don't really ever surface. We only talk about the winners. So it has a lot to do with that. So I think for those few reasons, I've done my best to disprove fractals. The next time you see someone post a fractal, whether it's on Twitter or TradingView or whatever, you have to really look at the other fractals that they have posted in the past. Try and see if you can backtest those and see if they had any kind of closeness to what ended up actually happening in the future. TradingView is pretty good for this, because you can usually see people posting their fractals, and then you can hit the play button, and then you can see what actually ended up happening. So I would recommend really looking at that. If you are someone who still feels that fractals have some kind of value, I would say look at backtest some fractals. Look at some fractals from 2015 or 2017 and apply them and see, and you will see that they really don't match very much at all. Or they do match, but you have to do some squeezing and elongating and stretching and things like that. So I personally don't believe in fractals. I like TA. I think TA is useful. So don't get me wrong, TA is great. Watch my TA video if you want to learn more about that. But as far as fractals are concerned, I think it is a large case of 1, apophenia, 2, correlation is not causation, 3, survivor bias, and 4, fallacious logic. And so for those reasons, again, I just really can't get behind fractals, and I don't think you should either. So if you like that video, please remember to subscribe, give the video a like, leave your comment below if you think I am full of crap or not. I will see you guys next time.